Welcome to the Bringing Business to Retail podcast on SelenaKnight.com. Stay ahead of the competition by opening your doors to business experts so you can learn, grow, and be inspired. Passionate about bringing business strategies to independent retailers, please welcome your host, Selena Knight.
Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Fun fact about me, and it may be hard to imagine because I deal with retailers day in and day out, but I don't like shopping. Yep, I said it, I put it out there. I really don't like going shopping. To me, shopping is meant to be a really enjoyable experience, one where you can spend some time in a really fantastic place, you feel really good, and you buy something which, when you take it away, makes you feel even better. And I'll be honest, I really struggle to find many stores that give me that experience. Maybe I'm a customer experience snob. I hadn't really thought about it like that, but it is. I just really struggle to get excited about going shopping. So do I shop online? Well, sometimes. Being a size 14, it can sometimes be difficult to find the clothes that fit. And even worse, sometimes the models that they use just are a completely different shape. I know, you use the models that will sell your product, but unless I really know a brand well, I probably will avoid purchasing online. However, I have started doing yoga. I started about 2 months ago, and I am really enjoying it. It is an hour a day where I can just bliss out and focus on what I'm doing because I'm still learning everything and not have to worry about anything that is going on in the world around me. I actually go 6 times a week, so I'm really into it. I'm really loving it. And I've started to notice that people express their personality in the gym with the kind of clothes that they wear. Now, my clothes, my exercise clothes in particular, are very much function over form. It's just what works, what fits to walk the dog. So I decided the other day to just splash out and buy a pair of mermaid tights. So they're purple and green and blue, all the colors that I love and look good on me. But I was a little bit worried about whether or not I could pull these mermaid tights off. Not literally, but figuratively. Because, big hips. It's one of these things that you worry about. And I was worried that when I got the pattern, it would be stretched. I really stressed about it, I guess you would say. And I don't know, I wore them to the gym, and I've worn them a few times since, and every time I wear them, people compliment me on them. So I took the plunge, and I've now gone and bought some more patterned tights. And now I'm really excited about what I wear to the gym, whereas before I kind of felt a little bit frumpy. And after I did the Style Power course with Alma Barrera, who's been on the podcast, and she showed me how I can express my personality through clothes, putting the black clothes on to wear to the gym was just kind of a bit of a downer. And it got me thinking that we're not always fantastic at expressing our personality because we worry about what other people are going to think about us. And it's really easy for that to spill out into our professional world. So if you have an e-commerce store or a retail store, sometimes you can feel like you have to be a certain kind of person or fit within a set of rules. But I don't think that's the case. Personality is what really draws me into a brand. When it comes to getting more customers, we want to know every little thing that we can possibly do in order to maximize how many people come into our store or onto our website for as little investment as possible. And when it comes to market research, not everybody can afford to be spending thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars to get the latest information. So today, I'm going to help you solve both of those problems. Well, I'm not going to help you. Today's guest, James Cook, head retail researcher at Jones Lang LaSalle, which is a global Fortune 500 company, is going to share with you the 6 dimensions of a retail experience that determine how engaged, empowered, and fulfilled a shopper is. Now, this is good stuff, guys. We dig into each of the 6 dimensions and talk about how you can implement them as an independent retailer. Now, a lot of the stuff we talk about is based on in-store experiences, so actual physical shop fronts. However, if you are just a pure e-commerce player, then I still think today's episode is worth a listen because we do delve into how you can cross that bridge, how you can bring these 6 dimensions into the e-commerce world. So I think you are going to like today's episode if you are looking for more customers. And let's be honest, who isn't? This episode is brought to you by my brand new e-guide for retailers called Smashing Through the Slow Season. Now, I know that you're finishing up summer holidays in the Northern Hemisphere, and here in Australia, we're in the dead of winter, which for both halves tends to be the time when retail does slow down a little bit, unless you are in one of those niches that can maximize people being on holidays and cold weather. However, you do not have to let this be all and end all. You can still make money and grow while you are in the slow season. So if you'd like to get my tips and tricks on how to smash through the slow season, head over to selenaknight.com/smash and grab the guide for free. Now let's jump into today's episode with James Cook on the 6 key areas to maximize in order to bring in more customers. Hey there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. Driving traffic to your store can be such a difficult thing. So I thought, who better to tell us about how we can do that but JLL's Head of Retail Research, James Cook. Welcome to the show, James.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. This is going to be a lot of fun.
I'm very grateful that you've come on because you guys have so much research. You have so much data that you can actually share with the listeners that perhaps maybe they think is a little bit out of their league, because you deal with big shopping centres and you deal with real estate agents who fill these kinds of centres. And as a result, you have a lot of information, a lot of inside information that can help our retailers get their customers to come in store. So thank you. I'm really grateful that you're coming to share this information with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. And you're right. Most of our insights come from working with top retailers around the world, but they're all applicable to any retailer.
And so what is the biggest thing that you find when you go, like, what do you look for when you go into a shopping center? Like, what is your thing that just makes you think, wow, they stand out?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a whole range of things. So our latest report we did was on how retailers create a retail experience, and we actually identified 6 different dimensions of retail experience. And I can talk a little bit more about some of them or all of them, or depends on where we go. But each dimension, you could think of it as an opportunity to win a customer. That's what it's really all about. So to give you one example, one dimension is like how intuitive a store is. And it's really simple. Like, you walk in, can you find what you're looking for? And I don't know about in Australia, but here in the US, we have these huge big box stores where the signage is not that fantastic. It is not intuitive. And not only that, but there's not really many store associates around to tell you where to go. That's just an example. Yeah. So that's just one example of where a store might not be intuitive. Now, I'm assuming that a lot of the folks that you work with, the stores aren't huge, but there's still ways that you can organize a store. So, if there are things that people are always coming in to look for, you want to have those in a prominent location, for example, something as simple as that.
So I'll just jump in quickly there, because I would love to hear about all 6 if you have time to tell us. But a question I get asked over and over and over and over again, nearly on a daily basis, is, should we put the sale rack at the front or the sale rack at the back?
Oh, it's the great debate, isn't it? Do you want to, clearly, if the sale goods will just draw them in, to the back of the store. And again, here's something I don't know how this goes in Australia, but in the States, the great debate in grocery stores is where to put the milk.
Yeah.
Because everybody comes in for the milk. Some grocery stores are like, well, we want them to come in and know it's right out front. Others say we should put it in the back. I think in the grocery world, people are realizing they probably want it in the back because you want people to go to the back of the store. So anyway, to your question, I put the sale items in the back as long as we know, as long as the customers are aware that they're there, because everything is about increasing dwell time, right? And the longer the dwell time, the more sales that we'll have.
Yes, and I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in the should I put it out the front, should I put it out the back, is there's nothing stopping you from doing both, right? Like you can draw them in and you can say we have more down the back. But I'll agree that you look to the big stores, they've paid millions of dollars sometimes for the research, and if they're putting the milk at the back, and in Australia the milk is always at the back, to me that's a pretty good indication that those well sought over, those high turnover items should be where they have to walk through the store in order to get to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do want to make sure, though, we're talking about sale items. You want to make sure people are aware that they're there. You don't want them hidden in the back. So some kind of teaser up front, be it a smaller display that can be seen from, by a passerby or signage or something, that they're coming in, and then they know to come in the store, and then they're drawn to go into the back to those sale items.
Okay. All right. So first dimension, looking for a good store is it intuitive? Can we find the thing? Just on that, why are so many big box stores bad at that?
Oh, it's all about money. It's
Right.
just all about money. You have to save money somewhere, and to create. You've got a huge store. You've got so many goods for sale in that store. There's no easy way to create a store map or signage. So what you really need is lots of associates to tell people where to go.
And they
But
cost money.
right, especially when you're a big discounter and you're selling things with a real thin profit margin, it just makes it really difficult.
Interesting. Okay. Second dimension.
Human, meaning, do you have a human, genuine interaction with a human associate? So this is the thing that's lacking, in the intuitive that we're talking about. And I always like one of my favorite examples. Here in the States, we have a chain of grocery stores. It's called Trader Joe's. I don't know if you're familiar with. Okay, good. You know all about TJ's.
I know all about Trader Joe's.
So for anybody who's listening who hasn't been, they're smaller format grocery stores, and they're always mobbed. They're very popular. They mostly only sell private label goods, so they have a lot of stuff that you can't get anywhere else. But the thing with Trader Joe's is they're not really great at fast checkouts. Like the lines are always long. It's slow, yet they're always mobbed, and people love going there, and people are true Trader Joe brand loyalists. And one of the key differentiators that Trader Joe hires specifically on the personalities of people. They don't test people for how good they are at stocking shelves or how fast they are at checking people out. They're like, we just want the nicest people who will stop stocking shelves and start having a great conversation with you. And that's
love them for a reason.
Right. Yeah. And that's that great human interaction that, a lot of big chains are really missing. It's tough to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that because I do the same thing. I always say hire on personality. You can always teach somebody something. And to be honest, especially in sales, you don't even need to be a great salesperson if you're a great connector, because we all buy on emotion. And if you like the person, if you can just innately like the person who's trying to sell the thing to you, then you're going to buy it just because they were nice and they were helpful. So that's interesting to hear. I didn't know that, and I have to say, I love Trader Joe's way more than Whole Foods, and I maybe that's the reason why. Maybe just subconsciously we actually are relating to what it is they're trying to sell. And this is, I think, one of the big things that independent retailers can do so much better than the big box stores is, whilst they might only have one or two people in their store, you give your customers attention. No matter how busy it is, you will always just hop between the people to develop that connection. So, just another way that we can be better than the big box stores. Yeah,
I mean, who is going to be more passionate, that independent retailer where it's their own business, or some, manager who, it's just a job for them? So yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Okay. We weren't even going to dig into these 6, but we're doing really well. So can we keep going?
Yeah, I'd love
Okay,
to. Sounds
fantastic.
great.
What's number
Okay,
3?
so yeah, another one is meaningful. How meaningful is it? And this is, I think, another edge that your independent retailer has. So what this means is when you shop there, do you have a sense of pride? Do you walk away feeling good about yourself?
Yeah.
And that's a real edge that independent retailers have because we all kind of want to root for the underdog, and we see it as a David and Goliath David and Goliath story.
Yes.
We're talking about stores. Um, and I know that I live in a small town and I will go to my local coffee shop, even go out of my way to go there because I want to support them and I want them to be successful and I feel good. It's a meaningful interaction.
I think on top of that, when it comes to meaningful, sometimes it goes back to those first two is if you can develop the connection with the sales associate and if everything is intuitive or the person is willing to help you, you go away feeling really satisfied that you bought the thing that is the best for you. Whereas when you go into a big box store, you go there, the bright lights are on, everything's chrome and shiny, and you're picking up the boxes and you're looking at them going, is this the thing I want? Is this the thing that's going to help me? You ask a sales associate, they just read off the side of the box. And you're just like, well, I could have done that myself. Whereas when you go into an independent store, the person is generally trying to sell you what you need rather than what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, coming out of a shopping experience at a typical big box store, I always, best case scenario is I escaped a battle without too many injuries. It's like a transaction occurred and it didn't take me too long, which is totally different from, visiting an independent retailer and, learning new stuff, talking to new people and having that meaningful experience.
I just put an example in here. Here in Australia, we have a hardware store called Bunnings, so kind of like your Home Depot. And they have the greeter at the door who really doesn't care about saying hello. He's just there or she's just there because they make him be there. We call them really helpful, unhelpful people. So they do occasionally have sales associates, never when you're looking for them. And then you'll ask them, and the answer they will give you will be so unhelpful, but they're really passionate about the answer that they gave you. You just walk away going, thanks, but that didn't help me. And I was reading just the other day that their average sale it's kind of like IKEA. You go in there for, some bolts and you come out with patio furniture. Their average sale is $112 in a hardware store. Like, that is huge. Like, I appreciate that they've got trade customers and people do go in to buy big, expensive things, but I just wanted some 3M hooks. Why have I spent $50? Like, I don't know how they managed to do it, but I kind of every time I go there, I walk away just thinking, I don't understand how. And in fact, my daughter, who's 9, turning 10, every weekend she's like, oh, not Bunnings again. It's no fun for her. It's not even a fun trip. Like, IKEA can sometimes be a fun trip, but it's a utilitarian trip. But every time I go there, it does seem like, you're exhausted before you even get there.
Yeah, absolutely. There are, and I don't want to be perceived as just bashing all big box retail because I think a lot of stores get it pretty well. I mean, there are multiple chains here in the US. Not to be confusing, but we have a Target that's different than your Target, I believe.
Oh, it's kind of the same, except yours sells food and alcohol, which is way better.
Because because I think Target is a big box retail, but does a good job at wayfinding. They do a good job at hiring good staff. There are others too. Another chain that we have is Best Buy, which is an electronics store.
The sales associates there are really good.
That's what's great about Best Buy is they hire, to put it bluntly, they hire geeks. And they sell geeky stuff. Yeah, and it really works. Every time I have an issue, with my phone or some device, Best Buy for me is a first stop.
Yeah, and we always use the examples. We always love Anthropologie and Urban Outfitters, obviously same company, but Urban Outfitters do it really well as well. I think Under Armour do a really good job. As we're not saying that they're bad, and the good thing about it is being able to look at what the big companies are doing and saying, I really like that about them. What they're missing is this humanity. We can take all of that and intersperse it into our businesses and make our businesses even better. And I think that's one of the key issues that independent retailers have, is they think they have to compete with the big box stores. But what you're saying is, if we can nail these 6 things that you're sharing with us so far, we've got the intuitive, the humanity, and the meaningful, and you're going to give us the other 3. If we can nail those things, then customers are going to want to come and spend money with us. You know, it's kind of a no-brainer. So thank you for sharing these. How are we up to number 4?
Okay, this is another one that independent retailers could do a great job at. It is about being personalized. So offering personalized service that's tailored to the specific shopper needs. And this is also the category. So when we did our survey, we surveyed 2,000 shoppers and asked them what they wanted and then what they were getting. And the biggest shortfall, the biggest gap was around personalization. Everybody wanted it, but not nearly as many retailers were offering it as shoppers wanted. Wow. And there's lots of great examples around personalization. If you're an independent retailer, it's getting to know your customer and you walk in the door and you say, oh, I know, what kind of shirts they like, or I know what kind of chocolates they like, and just kind of offering it off the bat. There's an example, a bigger retailer, Muji, Okay, so Muji is from Japan, and they do have some locations in Australia, although I don't remember where off the top of my head, but they are like sort of like the Japanese IKEA in a way. So they have furniture, but they also have clothing and all kinds of stuff, and their aesthetic is very scaled back and modern and utilitarian. They're great stores, really, really cool stores. And they opened up a few years ago, they opened up a flagship store in New York City on Fifth Avenue. And I like to talk about that because they did such a good job with personalization. So you could go in and, for example, they have these different fragrances that you can purchase, and they have a fragrance lab, so you can, like as a mixologist, do these bespoke home fragrances. And they have this embroidery station where if you buy clothing, then you can have it custom embroidered right there in the store. And they have this thing. Right. Yeah, they have this thing called their rubber stamp bar. So they also sell lots of envelopes and paper bags and stuff like that. And you can customize it all with all these rubber stamps that they have. So it's a little bit gimmicky, right? But it's really cool. Like you come away with this, personal, having the ability to personalize the things that you buy.
So that's a really good question, because when you said personalization, I didn't think you meant that kind of personalization, monogramming something. I thought you meant personalization more along the lines of making sure that what I'm looking for is what I'm getting. So, for example, if we send out an email, it's tailored to what I like rather than, an email blast. So is this personalization, the actual being able to put my stamp on it, that's really important at the moment?
Yeah, and your example is also part of it. I just pointed to an in-store experience, but in the digital world, my gosh, I am looking for any reason to ignore your communication with me, right? And in whatever electronic form it is, because I got so many coming in. But if it is personalized to me and it has information that I really care about, like I will stop and pay attention. So, absolutely.
And I think one of the things there, just to take it that little bit off course, is if you know that when the email comes, it is always filled with what you're looking for. So here in Australia, the grocery stores have their loyalty card. I'm sure you have the same thing. And then they send you out specials, but they're specials of the things you've already bought in the past. And sometimes it will have, I can't eat wheat, so gluten-free. So it'll say, I'll get the promotions that are new gluten-free thing that you might be interested in. So that is tailored. Like my husband's not going to get that because he's not gluten-free. So he never buys anything gluten-free. So that to me means I'll actually open it because I know that those things have been chosen for me. There's nothing worse than getting an email and seeing it's got kid stuff when you haven't got kids, or it's got guy stuff if you aren't in a relationship and you don't buy for your partner. So I think that, how do you think we can bring that in store? Putting you
Oh,
on the spot.
wow. Yeah. No, well, I mean, if you want to talk about the latest in technology, there's some really interesting stuff going on right now. I think of in the U.S. we have there's a growing candy chain called Lolly and Pops. And first off, it's a super cool store. They design them so it feels like kind of like an apothecary. Um,
Wow.
so really cool feeling. Their deal is they have the best candies from around the world. So I don't know what the best candy is from Australia, but I'm sure that they'll have that. They'll have like, you know, Pez dispensers and all kinds of stuff. It's a real experience. But they have a loyalty club. And, if you're a member of the loyalty club, they'll track, what you like. And when you go into the store, this is the thing that some people are a little weird about. If you opt in for it, they're trialing facial recognition.
Wow.
So when you walk in the store, one of the associates will be alerted, oh, we've got a value club member in the store. And his name's James, and he likes dark chocolate, or he likes peanut butter or something. And so they'll know who you are, and they'll be able to use technology to personalize it to you. I'm
It's a little,
ambivalent about that.
I was going to say it's a little bit creepy, but it's also super cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this is cutting edge stuff. So most of the folks that you work with and listeners to this show, you know what, I would just encourage you to start some kind of loyalty club. And the technology is out there where anybody can do it.
Yes, yes. One of the things that we used to do in our store was because we were a little store in a small suburb with a great big shopping mall. But if we knew that if someone had come in and said it's my kid's birthday party, we would keep a little like just in our notebook, we'd say, Gemma's Gemma's birthday party. And when people would come in and we knew it was a present because it was one of the questions we would ask, we would just put into the conversation, oh, who's the lucky birthday girl or boy? And if they'd said Gemma, we'd be like, right, just, in the background writing down what was bought, because what we would find is then poor Gemma's mum would come in with 3 of the same thing, because we would, before we started doing this, we would recommend the best thing for that kid. And we knew, it was it was just the same thing over and over again.
Right.
So we didn't know which child it was going to. So when then the poor mum had come back going, I got 3 of the same thing. You guys are really good salespeople, but I don't need 3. So we would just swap them out. So we just kind of in the background started keeping these little lists, which was, if it's for Gemma, just write down, and then you can go and have a look and say, actually, someone's already got her that, but you could get this to go with it. And again, it's a little bit creepy stalkery, but as a customer, you really, really appreciate that. You appreciate the fact that you're not giving someone 2 of the same thing.
Yeah, and it's not. I think it's creepy when it's like quote like it's Big Brother, like there's some company watching you. But if you're an independent store owner taking notes in a notepad, there's nothing creepy about that. I think that's just good advice.
Well, I'm glad that you like it because excuse me, our customers definitely liked it. All right, so where are we up to? We are up to number 5.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So this one is all about accessibility. And, there's physical accessibility, meaning it's just easy to physically walk through the store. And that is also, accessibility for everyone. So the aisles are wide. So if you use a wheelchair to get around, for example. But then beyond that, it's accessibility across all platforms. So, can I shop at your store in person? Can I shop on the web? If I pull up your website on my phone, does it look good, on mobile? Those kinds of things.
Yeah,
So,
I interviewed a blind person he's coming on the show in a couple of weeks, and we were talking about how difficult it can be for him to read a website, and I was a little bit mortified. I have to admit, I never really thought about it. And I said, "Oh, I hope you haven't been to my website. I hope it's not terrible." But he was saying where they find issues is that when things change. So he said Facebook are terrible at changing the layout. And so it can sometimes take him half an hour after a change to work out how to read it. And I think when you are completely able-bodied, it's not that you're insensitive to other people. It's just that these things don't cross your mind. And so I know as a new, well, as with my store, but also as a new mum, that pushing a stroller could be really difficult. And in our store, we get a lot of people with double strollers. So trying to get them through the door, because there's a little bit of a right angle to get in the door, could be really difficult. So it's like, what can you do to minimize those sorts of things? Because the last thing you want is someone having to leave something outside just to be able to walk into your store. And with accessibility, do you think that has anything to do with how you merchandise your store?
Um, hmm. In the fact that if you have like high items and you're a short person, you might not be able to reach them, that type of thing, or
Well, I was just asking from all your experience, because you've seen a lot of stores, is
yeah.
when you're looking at accessibility, are there any things that stand out in terms of merchandising? And that is one of them. I'm 5'7", and sometimes I can't reach those things, when they have two rails. And I'm like, I'm not short, but I still can't reach those things at the top. And there's nothing worse than having to ask somebody to get something down for you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when I think about accessibility, I've done a lot of work looking at the baby boomer generation here in the States, and they're in retirement age now, and as they get older, this is our biggest generational cohort that is becoming older, and our stores need to be adapted to fit easy to navigate. Not having lots of inclines. If you're using a wheelchair, easy to get around. And the cool thing about store design is if you design your store to be accessible to folks who use wheelchairs or folks who are elderly, the knockoff is it gets easier to navigate for everybody. So it's like a win for everybody.
There's nothing worse when they're in the grocery store and literally you can't walk past because one person's coming down and one person's coming up, and you're just there with your one thing and you can't actually get through because the aisles aren't wide enough.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost like stores were designed to pack in as much product as possible. And we're in an era now where more is not better when it comes to physical stores. You want less goods, more. Can always order it online, so it's not as important.
Yeah, and I think if you have too much of something, then making a choice is too difficult. Like
oh my gosh.
You go in and it's like when you go to a restaurant and there's 50 things on the menu. My daughter loves the Cheesecake Factory. So whenever we go to America, she loves the Cheesecake Factory. And you go there and there are literally pages and pages and pages and pages and pages, and you just think, I'll just get the burger. I just can't think about all these other things.
Yeah, it's a joke for folks who haven't been. It's like a novel, man, their menu. Now, to their credit, everything on that menu is delicious, but it is tough to make a decision.
It is. And I mean, being gluten-free, they make a gluten-free burger, so I'm always happy about that. We love burgers in our house. But my daughter is, to be honest, she only eats two things. She eats the mac and cheese and she eats the bow ties with Parmesan. But she'll still sit there and have a look and see if there's anything. There's a good 5 minutes in just reading the menu. And of course, then we've got, 3 pages of cheesecakes to go with it?
Oh, so many cheesecakes. So many.
But I always think when I go there that how much quicker could could the whole process be if you didn't give someone 12 pages of food to look at?
Yeah, that's a great point. But you've waited. Those cheesecake is notorious for the wait to get a table.
Yes.
So I think after you've waited that long, you really want to luxuriate. Take your time and really just chill out and read your book of a menu for a while and not be rushed. Yeah.
Eat the bread.
Right. Yeah. Delicious bread as well. We've been listening to the Cheesecake podcast.
Well, I remember the Cheesecake Factory for the lovely cheesecakes and things before I discovered I couldn't eat wheat. And now I just look at them and they have one gluten-free option, which is the Godiva cheesecake. And so I can't also eat a lot of dairy. So what I do is I buy that and then I give it to my daughter and then I just take a little bit off the end so I can feel like I had something. Anyway, not talking about food. Okay, number 6. What's our number 6 thing that we are looking at to increase our customer footfall with our in-store experience?
I saved my favorite for last. This is immersive. So this is creating a captivating environment that people really find enjoyment in. There's so many great examples of this. Have you ever been to Chelsea Market in New York City?
No.
It's a former Nabisco factory that was turned into. It's a huge. It's an office complex above, but on the ground floor, it's all this retail, and the way they've designed it, it's like you're kind of transported into another land. It's got such a great sort of fantasy land feel. I was there with somebody, and they felt like they were in like a Harry Potter book or something, and it's kind of difficult to describe, but giving people the opportunity to be transported to another world is something that, not every retailer can afford to do. If your value proposition is cheap things, you can't really afford to have a cool in-store, feel, and have this captivating environment. But it's something that if you can do it, people will just be drawn to escape there every day.
Yeah, we'll make sure we find some photos off the web and put it on this episode, because it sounds fantastic. I went to Point Loma Point, one of those two, over in San Diego, and it's in an old naval barracks, and they've transformed one of the buildings into, I guess you'd call it a food court. They've put all different types of food stands in there, but it's that kind of the experience is going in there feeling like you are in a market, but you've also got the history of the naval buildings, and there's a little comic store that I don't even like comics, but it's a little mom and pop store, and I walked in there, and it all added to the experience. And I think immersive, even something simple as having a great scent when you walk in, like is it burning a candle, or having some sort of aroma that comes in, because we all love walking past a bakery with the smell. We all love walking past the chocolate shop with the smell, or a spice store with even coffee. I don't like coffee, but I love the smell of coffee. So that immediately has an emotional effect, which is what we talked about right back at the beginning. Having that trigger in your brain, because your brain associates that with really nice stuff, really good feelings. So I think immersive is fantastic. And like you said, you don't have to go to the nth degree, but even just implementing one or two things that make somebody feel like they're escaping can do wonders for your sales.
Yeah, and your point about aroma is so well taken. Smells short circuit all the frontal lobe of your brain and go back right to your most emotional part of your brain. Like if I walk outside and smell new cut grass, I'm 10 years old again, just instantly. There are certain smells that are so nostalgic, and if you're, as a retailer, you can purchase different fragrances if you can figure out one that has an association, a nostalgic association, or, a positive association with the shopper. I mean, it's not that expensive, but it's a really interesting thing you can do to create a cool experience.
That's interesting that you say it kind of overloads or overwhelms everything else that's going on in your brain, because I didn't know that. But you're right. I'm just thinking about, there's the smell of a certain flower, and I can't even tell you what flower it is, but every time I smell it, I remember being sort of 12 years old, sitting on the window seat of our house. Not even anything else, just being that age and sitting on the window seat reading a book. And I don't know, it always works for me.
Yeah, for me, the flower is honeysuckle. Whenever I smell honeysuckle, I feel like a kid, because we had a lot of that where I grew up.
You have done a fantastic job sharing it. Let's just go back through them again. So first of all, we've got intuitive. So having things in the right spot. We've got the human touch. So that's pretty obvious, making sure you have humans in the store, unless you are that Amazon store where you just walk in and scan everything. Have you seen that?
Yes, the Amazon Go store. Yes, that is an interesting concept. And if you are looking to buy things quickly and without any friction, as you would online, that's an interesting way to go.
It's like a really good introvert store, isn't it? Don't come
Right.
near me.
Nobody touched me.
Nobody touched
No
me.
eye contact.
Meaningful. So again, pretty obvious. What was number 5? No, 4. 4.
Personalized, so
Personalized.
tailored to your needs.
Right. I was so engrossed in that one, I forgot to write it down. And then we've got accessible, which is obviously just making sure that people can move around your store. And lastly, immersive. Do you have any examples of a store that does all 6 of those really, really well?
Oh boy.
eyebrows go
Let
up.
me let me think about this. So, are you familiar? I'm thinking through all the categories. Well, do you know Tom's Shoes? Are you
Yes.
familiar with that retailer? So they have some nice flagship stores here in the States. And I've been to several of them, and each one is unique. It's kind of tailored to its neighborhood. So right there, that's kind of the personalized.
Yeah.
They've got great people working. They're very intuitive. They're immersive in that they're really they do a lot of cool things to make you feel special. So they'll have a coffee shop in it. The one in Austin, I think, has a yoga area. There's like
Wow.
an outdoor. Yeah, a really cool. Accessible. Yeah, I think they're accessible. They're pretty easy to get to, and you can always buy from Tom's online if you want.
Yeah.
And they're really meaningful because Tom's has this 1-for-1 thing where you buy a pair of shoes and they'll donate another pair of shoes to somebody in need. So, yeah, I think that's a pretty good example.
Oh, I'm going to have to make sure I pop into one of their stores because they had a pop-up store in Westfield here in Sydney. And I was doing a workshop in the Westfield, and we actually went to that store as a really bad example of everything you've just talked about. And I don't know if it was because it was a pop-up store, but one of the people in the workshop was in a similar, in a social enterprise. And she said, I've heard that they've got this pop-up shop. Can we walk down there? Because we were walking through different stores talking about these sorts of different things. And we went there and we stood outside, and she said, I am so disappointed. This is nothing like what I expected. And then she went into the store, she couldn't get any help. So maybe we just got a bad one, like because it was a pop-up, who knows? But now that you've said that, I'm really interested to go and have a look because I've used that example because we took a couple of photos as well, not of any staff, of how they weren't doing all these things and how the customer experience didn't live up to what we were expecting from before we went there. We went to the website and everyone was really excited about going there. Like you said, we wanted to feel good about buying. We wanted to have this experience that even though we were buying something for ourselves, we were giving. And going in there, and not everybody went in. A couple of people went in to purchase. You know, there was no help. There weren't a lot of sizes available. So maybe we were just really unlucky. So I'm going to stop using Tom's as my example.
Well, what it's an example of, I mean, because we do a lot of work around the pop-up store phenomena, and one of the examples of is how difficult it is to run a pop-up and have that pop-up live up to your brand standards, especially if you're US based, you're doing a pop-up in another country. It's really tough to hire and train people for a temporary retail location like that and have it live up to your standards.
That's interesting. But by the same point, not going to those same levels that you expect in your own store can significantly damage your brand.
Oh, absolutely. You should, yeah. One, just in general, if to all the retailers out there, if you're going to do pop-ups, they need to be as good or better than the rest of your fleet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We could talk for ages. I have like a whole bunch of questions I've written down. You probably saw me scribbling my notes as I went, but we have been talking for a while already. On your website, on the JLL website, I know that you've got a lot of data. Is there some white papers or something we could download to absorb some of that information?
Absolutely. So we have a specific website just about retail. It's jllretail.com. And if you go there and click on Retail Intelligence, it brings up a page of all of the different reports that we've written. The one that we've talked about today is called Beyond Buying. So if folks weren't like you taking notes and they want to just see everything laid out that we talked about, have them download the Beyond Buying report. And then we do a podcast as well. So if if listeners are interested in the kinds of topics that we were just talking about, we talk about it every week on our show, which is called Where We Buy. And we have a website, wherewebuy.show. And of course, we're all on all the different podcast places and apps.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was, to me, that was so much knowledge that we can take, and even just implementing one or two of these really well can see a huge difference in the amount of customers that you get coming into your store. And I think even customer engagement, like being able to take some of these things, especially personalization was the one that I was thinking about, and putting them onto social media, that is automatically, like if I see someone's monogram or if I see the stamps, I'm going to want that too. I'm really going to feel connected, and that's going to drive me into the store or drive me to the website so that I can have a little piece of that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the coolest thing about personalization is it takes effort, but not necessarily a lot of money.
No.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that you have to be thoughtful about, but it's achievable for, independent store owners out there.
Cool. Well, thank you so much again. This has been one of my favorite episodes in terms of getting a whole bunch of usable stuff that we can implement.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for having me, Selena. This has been a lot of fun.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Bringing Business to Retail podcast. You can find all of the show notes over at selenaknight.com. If you found something that you heard today particularly useful, I'd love it if you could leave me a review on iTunes or Stitcher. And of course, feel free to share this episode with someone that you think could benefit by listening to it. Want more retail biz strategies? You can watch the Bringing Business to Retail TV show, where each week I'll answer a question or provide you with a simple, actionable retail biz strategy that you can implement in your business right away. If you have a question or a guest, I'd love to hear from you. Drop my team an email at podcast@selenaknight.com, and I'll see you on the next episode. Have a great week.